I do remember the first shot I hit as a professional was in the US Open at Congressional. I was teeing off on 10 that afternoon, and 10 was right behind the clubhouse. And you hit over water to kind of a narrow green. I think it was maybe 210 yards or something. And it felt like there were a million people on the back. That clubhouse is huge there in the back. Yeah. And there must have been, 20,000 people back there. And I'm sitting here and I've got this 5-iron in my hand and all I see is water. And then there's like a little sliver of green. And then there's a huge deep bunker behind it. And I'm like, man, if I could somehow just get it over this water and in front of that bunker, I'll be the happiest guy in the world. And so I actually hit a pretty good shot, like just in the back fringe, and was able to 2-putt for a par. And I thought, okay, I got that out of the way. And then 11 back then was like a 10-yard par 4 with water down the right and thick rough on the left. And I'm like, all right, this isn't getting any easier. But I still remember that shot vividly of just, let me just get off this tee box.
Here with Bud Cauley here at the Bears Club. Bud, thanks so much for joining us. This place is awesome. What a cool setting here in the locker room, the master section of the locker room. So what's the vibe at the Bears Club like?
I mean, it's a lot of fun. There are a lot of pros here, which is nice. Yeah. Easy to, at least for me, get a game or guys to practice with. And, obviously to see Mr. Nicholas around here a bunch is pretty cool too. I always kind of joke with guys that, you've had an unbelievable career when you can fill a place this big with all your accomplishments and pictures and stuff like that. So it's a really neat place just to hang out and never know who you're going to kind of bump into, and to be around the guys that I'm, playing with every week is fun too.
Yeah, that's got to be cool because you're walking around. Yeah, I'm walking around the locker room, which is where we are here. And we're in the master section, but there's the open section, the US Open section. It's like, yeah. To have a section in your club for each of those, you did have a pretty good career.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool place. So you live here in the Jupiter area.
Mm-hmm.
How did you land on Jupiter? You're kind of from all over.
Yeah. Well, growing up, I lived all over. My dad was a Navy diver, so we kind of moved around a lot. I spent most of my childhood in Jacksonville, so just a little north of here, and then. I don't know, after school, it seemed like a lot of guys that I, were friends with or kind of knew pretty well kind of moved down here. This was kind of the spot. It used to be Orlando, and then it kind of shifted down here a little bit. So just seemed like a fun place to be around guys that were doing the same thing, I guess, that I was.
Yeah.
Then I met my wife. She's from here, and that's kind of all she wrote.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Who's your crew here? Who do you get a game with? If we can say. Who plays here, but who do you hang with?
JT and I play a lot together. Yeah. Berger's out here. He's always good for a game. Lucas Glover, we have the same coach, so we spend a lot of time together. So, but yeah, I mean, there's really, you kind of never know. Camilo's out here a lot. We'll play. Akshay just joined, Cameron Young. It's like you never know.
Yeah.
You might go on the range just to hit a couple balls and then you kind of fall into a game. So that's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's got it. I mean, the range some days must look like a tour event or something if everyone's out there practicing.
No, yeah. Yeah, it's like walking down the range at the BMW.
Is there a regular game here or a standing game that you guys play, or is there a match that what are the matches here like? Is it for a handshake or is it a little something?
No, it's normally a little something.
A little something.
Yeah. Kind of, not a lot of these guys won't get out of bed just for a handshake.
Yeah,
so,
right.
But it's nothing too crazy, enough to, to get your attention. Yeah. And I feel like, I think that's good, even like preparation wise, just to get ready for a tournament. If you go out there and it kind of doesn't matter, maybe you go through the motions, but especially when you see these guys all the time, you don't want to be the guy that keeps having to pay out.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Who do you want to be playing? Who do you want on your team, and who do you want to be playing against?
I don't know. That's tough. Berger seems he maybe gets the chirpiest out there. Yeah. So, so sometimes it's nice because he gets into it and plays really well, but when he has to pay you too, sometimes that's fun also. So it's always good to get out there with Berger and see, what kind of kind of mood he's in.
That's cool. So congratulations on 2025, man. You had an awesome season, and it set you up really. I mean, making the playoffs, a bunch of top tens, 3 million plus on the money list. I mean, really, a really great year. But it kind of kicks off with the players.
Mm-hmm.
You're T6 there, but you get a phone call. If I believe this is how it went, a rather late call saying you're in.
Yeah.
And then you turn that into a really successful, important week. So what was that experience like for you? How did that work out?
Yeah, I was actually here. I was hitting balls here. It was maybe like 11 o'clock or something on Monday. And,
wow.
Get the phone call. They say, hey, you're in. And, which is great. The players to me growing up in Jacksonville was always, one of my favorite events, and it's always fun to play at home. So It was a tournament I was hoping that I would be able to get into at the beginning of the year, and it was kind of close, and then was able to get in. And yeah, I don't know. I just packed up, and I packed my car up and drove up there, and got out there Tuesday morning and tried to kind of make it as normal a week as possible. But yeah, to play well there anytime is great, just because of kind of what that tournament means to me, and to do it that week when I had my medical and kind of all these other things going on was a lot of fun. I think even my birthday was Sunday, so it was just like, really, really fun week.
Yeah. Yeah. And you played great, leads to a big 2025. Looking back on the season, what do you think was the difference for you this year in having so much success?
Yeah. I mean, looking back on my first year back, after missing a little over 3 years, I think that first year was kind of nice to maybe get my feet wet again. And, I think I felt more prepared when I started playing maybe than I actually was. Yeah. And so the first year when I played those few events was a little kind of bumpy, but this year I felt a little bit more settled and had a year of playing some tournaments and really kind of working on a bunch of little things I thought were going to help me. And I felt like that was, the difference this year is, things weren't quite as new and as fresh as they were the year before. And I just had a little more time to kind of work on my game and get some things going the right direction.
Yeah. Did you learn something about yourself this year, having the comeback and then getting, back into the playoffs? What did you learn about yourself through that process?
I don't know. I've always felt like I was good enough to play and compete and win. And, maybe even more, not so much about myself or like mentally, but just physically. I really felt good this year, which was nice, and didn't have any hiccups with some of the injuries I've had in the past. And so that makes me feel a lot more comfortable kind of going into this year. And hopefully, the next 10 years would be great if I could keep playing. So that's, I think my comfort level with my body and those injuries is really, it makes me feel more comfortable going forward.
Because you've dealt with a lot. The accident in 2018, the comeback, trying to get healthy again. I mean, some people might not know that why you obviously had huge success at Alabama as an amateur golfer, success earlier in career, and then all this success, and they might not know what happened in the middle there. So can you tell us what did happen?
Yeah. So, I had a couple injuries even before the accident that kind of were tough. In 2014 or 15, my shoulder dislocated in the middle of the tournament at John Deere, or it's called a subluxation, I guess, because it came back in. But so that put me out for almost a year, which was kind of difficult. And then I had knee surgery after that. And then, in 2018, I was in the car accident, which actually was only out for a few months. It was really bad, got really banged up, but was able to kind of recover and come back. And I played for a little bit. And then what had happened kind of started flaring up again. And that's when I did have another surgery that didn't go well, had a lot of complications, had to have a couple more surgeries after that. And that's when I was out for a little over 3 years. Yeah. And, there were a lot of times where I thought, obviously in the beginning, you're kind of, your optimism's a little higher and you think, hey, I'll fix this and it's gonna get better. And then, a year goes by and that kind of, you start to wonder if maybe I'm a little delusional and if I'm going to be able to fix this and get back to, playing again. So, so that was a really bumpy time. And then, but to kind of get through that and, just these little steps of, I remember even when I was back at home, it was just trying to go play 18 holes. And then it was trying to play 18 holes 2 days in a row and then 3 days in a row, so I really kind of started from, the littlest amount I could do. And then to build up to where I am now has just been, and I've had a lot of help. Obviously, it hasn't been just me, but it's just nice to kind of get back to this point.
So how did you get through that? Those dark moments of like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this anymore. I mean, because 3 years, that many surgeries, going into surgery, you're like, was there a point you're like, enough is enough? Or how did you keep getting after it, staying after it?
Yeah, I mean, I can't give enough credit to my wife and kind of helping me, get through it. It was something that we dated for a little while. And then, when we got married was kind of right when I started having all these issues again. And, I really felt bad. It's like we're starting our life together and I'm kind of in this low point. And so that was, something I guess was motivating for me, for everything that, was happening to me, but she was going through it also, and so that, she helped me a lot and just kind of continuing to try and one thing wouldn't work and I would kind of, get sad or, down about it. And then a week would go by and she'd be like, okay, like, what's the next thing? Let's, keep trying. Cause she knew how much it meant to me. And, it's nice now for her to, be able to come out and travel. We have, 2 boys now. And, I want her to enjoy it, I guess, too, is my point, just because she went through it as much as I did.
Yeah. It's great to have that person in your life who can remind you of what really matters or who you are, and what you need. And for you need to be playing golf.
Yeah. And even like, we had our first son, Cooper, during that time when I was hurt. And I remember even saying to her and saying to Colby, my trainer, I was like, even if I don't play professionally again, I've got to get to where I can play just so I can play with him. Exactly. Golf's been such a big part of my life. And to think, he would grow up, maybe take an interest in golf and I would, be unable to participate in that with him, even if it's just going out and playing 9 holes for fun, was something that I just like couldn't accept. I was like, even if I can't play, compete again, I have to be able to at least play with him.
Yeah. So the body's good now. Or what do you have to do are there things you have to do to extra things to play or to get ready or to extra physio you're doing?
Yeah. I mean,
as they call it, physio, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm maybe doing anything extra than, it seems like everyone now has this like hour routine before and, hour or so after. And I think maybe mine's just a little bit different. It's very specific to the injury that I had, with the car accident, my side and my ribs and things like that. So, I have tried to explore everything, over 3 years, you pretty much try everything, whether it's, like invasive surgeries or just kind of the food you eat day to day. So I've noticed, a lot of, positives and cleaning up some of those things. And that's something I try to be, aware of and not, eat a bunch of junk food or, not going through my routine, I think maybe affects me more than other guys. So I try to stay on top of it, just because it allows me to do what I love to do.
So if anyone listening wants to get a little healthier, what do you and don't you eat and don't you eat? What tips can you give us on diet for better health? And,
I feel like the best, you can go down so many rabbit holes with it. I just try to eat just whole foods. I know it sounds simple, but, whether it's, just chickens and, meats, carbs, things like that, but things that are healthy, don't have a bunch of like added ingredients. Another tip I got once is if you buy something in a package, make sure it doesn't have more than 4 ingredients. And when you really start looking, that's more difficult to do than you might imagine. Right. So, obviously we have, a couple young kids and I'm, if we go out for ice cream or, pizza, every couple of weeks, like I'm not that, dogmatic about it. But, it's kind of like the 90-10 rule. I try to be good 90% of the time, and then 10% of the time I'll, have the strawberry ice cream and the pizza on a Sunday.
I've got the 90-10 flip the opposite direction, I think, but we're going to work on that. But it's interesting, like all these things that can help your performance or just feeling better when you're out there playing. And if you're playing so much and walking so much, that being able to do that, diet's important.
Yeah. And I think after having injuries too, like maybe my like margin for error is a little smaller than someone else. So I think if I do get off my diet, I think I can really feel it. I can feel it kind of whether it's the inflammation or whatever it is. And so I'm trying to just keep all that stuff down as much as possible. Cause on a good day, I still might feel a little bit. So, the bad days, I feel it a little bit more.
So we put that behind us. Healthy, great 2025 season. But also, I mean, you kind of came onto the tour in a big way. You were one of the first guys to come onto the tour and skip Q school and come straight from college. Was there did you feel any kind of pressure with that? There's the guy that, didn't go through Q school. Or was there maybe a freedom to that? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really remember feeling any pressure. Right when I turned pro, I was kind of playing really well, which I think was nice. And so to get off to that great start that summer and, have a bunch of good finishes and be able to skip Q school just felt like I kind of got where I wanted to be, maybe a little faster than I thought. But I don't think it added any pressure. I was just really excited to kind of get out there and get it going. And
you did.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was, it wasn't really like a goal that I had set that summer. I was just, obviously when you're turning pro, you're just trying to write letters and see what tournaments you can get in and, and how all that's going to shake out. And I just felt very, fortunate to be playing well. And I was able to play my way into a couple extra events by finishing in the top 10. And so it was like, once it kind of got rolling, I think maybe that took the pressure off more than anything, that I just had a couple good finishes and felt like, okay, I can do this kind of thing.
It's awesome. Was there a moment or a tournament or even a hole where you felt like, when you're turning pro, because maybe there are those reservations, I would certainly have them, of like, do I belong out here or am I good enough? Was there a moment where you're like, I got this, I can do this?
I don't really remember that where I thought, I could do this maybe after my first good finish, but I do remember the first shot I hit as a professional was in the US Open at Congressional. Yeah. And it was back when they've changed the course now, but I was teeing off on 10 that afternoon, and 10 was right behind the clubhouse. Yep. And you hit over water to kind of a narrow green. I think it was maybe 210 yards or something.
Yeah, par 3 there. Yeah.
And it felt like there were 1 million people on the back. That clubhouse is huge there in the back. Yeah. And there must have been, 20,000 people back there. And I'm sitting here and I've got this 5-iron in my hand and all I see is water. And then there's like a little sliver of green. And then there's a huge deep bunker behind it. And I'm like, man, if I could somehow just get it over this water and in front of that bunker, I'll be the happiest guy in the world. And so I actually hit a pretty good shot, like just in the back fringe, and was able to 2-putt for par. And I thought, okay, I got that out of the way. And then 11 back then was like a 10-yard par 4 with water down the right and thick rough on the left. Yep. And I'm like, all right, this isn't getting any easier. But I still remember that shot vividly of just, let me just get off this tee box.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So you've been on tour for a while now. Tell me something, something that is misunderstood about life on PGA Tour, something that maybe the fans don't see or don't know.
I don't know. I feel like this has kind of been talked about a lot, but just how when things aren't going well, how kind of lonely it can be out there. Yeah. And I've certainly experienced that in my career. You miss a few cuts in a row and, and things aren't going well. And even now, like, I guess something that I didn't understand before, but I have a, more of appreciation for now was just having a family and having to leave and be away. Before I was injured and was out, like I said, my wife and I were just dating at the time. It was kind of this fun thing to go do, travel around and play golf. But now, we have a little over 2.5-year-old and a 7-month-old, and to get up, those Monday mornings and go to the airport and leave is pretty difficult. And, especially now, like our oldest is getting old enough where he knows when I'm leaving and, asking me not to go. And like those things are difficult. And, everyone has jobs and has to be away from their family. I feel like that's not, obviously only golf, but, those things, even these past couple of years have weighed on me. It's kind of this new thing I've had to learn to deal with, where in the past I just hadn't experienced that before.
Yeah. I mean, I think becoming a parent, so your second son was born, it was very young before the Players.
Right.
It was you'd born just a few months before that.
Yeah.
So I wondered, parenting and the role of being a parent as a professional golfer. I mean, obviously you're trying to juggle your time differently. And you have different priorities for your time. So maybe less time to practice or less time to do this. But I mean, there's a lot of things you gain too, I think. Maybe is there, how does that net out? I mean, in terms of like gaining perspective on things that are important versus having less time to grind on the range.
Yeah.
How has parenting affected you as a player?
Me as a player, I feel like it's only affected me in a positive way, like in everything in my life, obviously. I mean, nothing, it's hard to just even explain how amazing it is to, like I said, Cooper's only a little over 2.5 now, but, how much joy he has in the things that we go do. And, even now, like he's kind of taken a little bit of an interest in golf. And so being able to come out here with him, like I look at, even the game a little bit differently. There are times I'll come out and I won't even have my clubs. He just wants to come like hit some balls and, messing around with him.
At 2.5?
2.5, yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm kind of out of it now. At first, I was almost scared to death that I was going to wake up one morning and he wasn't going to want to come anymore. But we're going on a few months now and he still, wakes up in the morning. The first thing he has to do is go to the golf course and hit some balls. So, but yeah, I guess it's a little cliche, but it does make playing poorly or, golf not going well, it does put that in perspective a lot more. For a long time, golf was the thing I obsessed over the most, I guess, in my life, where now it's, it's them and thinking about them and things that we can do together or how I'm going to, if they can travel more or, all these things. So it's obviously not even close to the most important thing in my life anymore, which I think is a net positive where you go out there and it is maybe a better perspective.
Yeah, for sure. When all you have is golf and golf's not going well, it's a dark place. But when you have all these other things in your life, is the 2.5-year-old, is he able to, like, he knows what you do? Can he watch you on TV? Like, my dad plays golf. He gets it.
That's
awesome.
Even like sometimes I'll come home and he'll ask to he'll point at the TV and go, daddy golf, I want me to play, so, cause he's very observant. Like he'll, even when we come out to the range, even if it's not me or other people, he likes to watch people swing and copy what they do.
Oh, cool.
And so, his first thing was kind of his right foot coming up during his follow through. He was noticing that everyone's, right toe came up and so he'll hit a ball now and he'll check to make sure his foot's up. So
that's awesome.
It's fun to see that stuff and just watch him kind of take everything in and just picking up the game.
Well, he's got a great swing to watch in yours. Absolutely. So what you got, what has you excited, coming off a big year? What's got you pumped up for 2026? How's your game feeling? What are you working on?
Yeah. I feel like I made a lot of improvements this year and it's kind of just more of the same. My coach and I, really try to pick apart my rounds and figure out he loves to say, just pick up a quarter shot a day kind of thing. And that's really been our approach, this last year and a half is whatever it may be, just trying to get a little bit better and hopefully, you do that long enough and you kind of start getting the results you want. So, a big thing for me, technically in my swing is just my takeaway. That's something I feel like we're always working on. And if I can kind of get that in a good spot, it seems like everything else falls into place for the most part. So I just saw him a couple of days ago and we spent almost the whole lesson just on my, my takeaway and trying to get that dialed in. And then obviously you can always make more putts and chip it closer. So that's, something I'm really trying to get dialed in this off season too.
What are you working on in your takeaway? Because it's funny, when we see someone like yourself play golf, you always wonder like, how would you give that person a lesson? They can go around just fine.
Yeah.
So what are you trying to do with it?
I've always had a tendency to get my hands a little bit out and the club face a little open.
Okay.
And so what we're really working on is getting my hands to work a little bit more inside and just having the face a little bit more square, kind of halfway back and then up to the top.
From there.
When this, you think it would be the easiest thing to kind of get down. It's the first couple feet of the swing. But for whatever reason, my tendency is to do that. So we always kind of are managing that. And really it's funny how the feels kind of evolve just trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Even this year, we've obviously been working on it a lot too. And, I've maybe had 50 things I've thought of to do the exact same, thing,
Yeah.
just get the hands a little bit more in the club square. So, but it is hard too to, make big changes while you're also trying to compete too. And so, it's nice now to have this little bit of time to, really get this stuff down and get it to a point where hopefully next year it's not something I'm having to really actively think about while I'm playing.
How do you work on stuff like that? Are you a drill guy? Are you a put a thing on your wrist guy? Are you a feel guy, or do you like to look at a screen? Like, I think everyone's with whatever you're trying to work on in your swing, people can be different. Where I need a toy to feel something, or I need one swing thought, or I need to see it on TrackMan,
Yeah. I definitely like to use video just to see like what I'm feeling compared to what I'm actually doing. But I've never been big on, like wearing things or, you get these things on your wrist or your forearms. Like I like to have a feel, and the feel, that, because a feel is something I think I can take to the golf course easier if it were to get off, as opposed to if I'm wearing a bunch of different things, then maybe it's forcing me to get there, but I don't really have the feel on my own.
Yeah.
And so that's, sometimes we'll put maybe like if my hands are getting too out, he may hold a stick there. So I have to move the club, to not hit it, but it's still my own feel. And, I prefer to do things that way.
So you're in the off season working on this stuff in your swing. Just take us through a day and what a day in the off season looks like for you. Probably some kids in the morning.
Yeah, we Cooper's started some pre-K, so I'll normally take him and drop him off in the morning, and then it's actually pretty convenient. The gym that I work at with Colby's pretty close to there, so I'll pop in the gym and see Colby, come home, maybe make some breakfast, and then I'll either come out here. It's kind of the off season now, so they're closed a couple days a week here, but come out here and hit some balls, do some putting drills, and it's really nice too. Jason Bale, my coach, lives here also, so I can. He's at Jupiter Hills. I can pop over there and see him for just an hour. If I, one of those feels we were talking about, if I think I have something, I can send him a video or just pop over there and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, and he can say, yay or nay, and then we can kind of keep moving forward. So it's really nice to have, all those people here where I don't have to like travel to go get a lesson or anything like that.
Yeah, that's got to be really nice. So a lot of great golfers here in Jupiter, guys here at Bears Club, and you've played with so many great players over the course of your career. Is there anyone that you've tried to model yourself after, or that you've looked at and said,
not really. I will say one thing, just talking about, even just like dealing with injuries or hoping to try to play for a long, I'm 35 now. I'd love to play for another 10 years. And, I mentioned that Lucas Glover's a member out here, and we have the same coach in Jason. And, I feel like it's so impressive what he's been able to do. I think Lucas is maybe 45 now and still able to, compete and play as well as he has, at 45. And, obviously the last, I think it was maybe 2 years ago when he won back-to-back events. And, so, I'm around him quite a bit, and I, plan on picking his brain a lot too on maybe just some of the things that he's done or what he thinks has allowed him to, play and compete as well as he has, up into his, mid 40s. Cause that's, having missed, my later 20s and even my early 30s, I'd really love to maximize these last 8 or 10 years that, hopefully I'll have in order to play. And, I just feel like what he's done has been really impressive. And, that's something that I would love to do, is to really try to maximize the last 8 or 10 years of my career to hopefully, be able to accomplish some of the things that, when I turned pro at 21 that I, was hoping to do. Cause I, even though I've maybe had some good finishes, I haven't really been able to accomplish a lot of the goals that I set out, to accomplish when I turned pro. And so I'm hoping that I can really make these last 8 or 10 years count.
Well, you're playing great. There's a lot of time. So are you a goal setter? Are there things that you're looking at in 26 or in a 5-year plan, things that you're really focused on?
Not really, like whether it's winning a certain tournament or, doing certain things. I try to just do the little things correctly every day and get a little bit better. And hopefully that'll lead to, the things that I want to accomplish. But, it's kind of the same stuff I feel like everyone wants to, win tournaments, play on Ryder Cups, win majors, like all these things were dreams I had as a kid. And, and even though I got off to a pretty good start in my professional career, whether it's just injuries or poor play, those things haven't quite, manifested. So I'm hoping, like you said, I'm 35. I'm not too old yet, but
No.
I can, especially with kids now, what do they say? The days are long and the years are short. I feel like time's flying by. So I want to, make these years count.
Well, kids mark time, right? Like until I had kids, I didn't realize that oh, what happened in my 20s? Like I wasn't even paying attention,
Yeah.
But then you have children and you're like, you see them going to school and doing this and you're like, whoa, this is really moving.
Yeah.
Really moving fast.
No, it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
I remember, I forget if it was right before Cooper was born or right after. I was home. I was taking out the trash one morning, and across the street, our neighbors were saying bye to their last daughter. They were outside in front of the U-Haul taking a picture. She was getting ready to leave for school, like their last kid. And I remember it just dawning on me, like Cooper's going to leave one day, it never even crossed my mind. And to your point about, time going by quickly, he's not even 3 yet. He's pretty close, but it's like, I feel like we just brought him home from the hospital.
Totally.
So I can see when people say just to enjoy it or that it goes by fast, I feel like I'm starting to understand really what that means.
Yeah. And everyone says it because it's true.
Yeah.
And especially since like when you have a really young one, you spend the first 6 months in like a zombie, from no sleep. And you're like, I see pictures of like our little, I'm like, I don't even remember that.
Yeah. I feel like that's nature's way of making you have more.
Right,
if you remember how hard it was, everyone would have one kid.
Yeah, if I could vividly recall those first 6 months.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you mentioned Lucas Glover and your friendship there. You have a real friendship with Justin Thomas as well, going back to Alabama. You were a few years ahead of him.
Yes. Yeah. 3.
Yeah. So, but you're at Alabama. You're a 3-time All-American, Walker Cup. You're the man at that time in the program. So I know you're a player that he's looking up to. You have your injury. He's someone that's there for you during that. What's that relationship like?
Yeah, it's been great. JT is one of my, best friends, whether it, if we're not playing golf, just hanging out and, doing things together. Now he has a young daughter too, so we're kind of going through that, together too. But he's obviously seen me struggle with injuries and the things that I've gone through, and I feel like it's kind of rare to have, like a friend like that on tour where I really feel like he's, unless he's in contention, he's pulling, as hard for me almost as I am for myself, and, of course I pull for him too. And it's just fun to have, a friendship like that. And, I think that's just another great thing about golf. Justin, along with, a lot of other friends of mine I've met through golf. And, it's great. He's been, like I said, one of my best friends, and, I'd do anything for that guy. So, and he's been very supportive of me and, the things I've gone through and trying to get back.
There's a knock on, people look at the PGA Tour and they say, everyone sticks to their own, they have their camp, their team, they kind of stick to that universe. The guys don't hang out as much. The relationships aren't, we'll hear a lot of that with the Ryder Cup, as to why America's not as tightly bonded, because they're all in their own branded universes and all that stuff. But that I don't get that, this the sense with you that you do have real friends who you play golf with for a living. Yeah.
I just think that's important. Obviously the golf is important. We all take a lot of pride in how we, our score and competing and trying to do well. But, there are a lot of great people, in golf, whether it's players or, coaches or trainers, whoever they are. And so, the friendships that I have and, have developed mean a lot to me. And, it's something that I feel very lucky that I have these people who I feel like are really great people, around me to spend time with and do things with. And that, I think, only makes the whole experience better.
Absolutely. So speaking of JT, so he's a freshman when you're a senior?
I left after my junior year.
Right.
So He would have been a freshman my senior year.
Okay. But getting to know him at that point in his life, do you know he's going to be this good? He's pretty good.
He's unbelievable. Just watching him hit iron shots is, I don't know how you hit it any better than that. He's obviously had a ton of success, but he's one of those guys too. You're like, he could win 3 times every year and you wouldn't be surprised, So, and being close with him and just seeing the work that he puts into and how just smart he is about the way he approaches his game and how he prepares, it's not really surprising either to see him go out there and play well and have all the success.
Yeah. So, hanging out with the JTs and the Bergers, having your success, but you've also, on your comeback, played some time on the Korn Ferry. And over the course of your life, I've just played with so many great golfers whose names we'll never know, or I'll never know. This is a hard question, but I always wonder about what's that difference between, the great players who are on mini tours or trying to even get on mini tours, who, if you play golf with them on any given day, could go out and shoot some ridiculous number. There's so many, especially down here. Mm-hmm. What's that thing? Why do some make it, to winning those events or getting onto the tour, and some don't? Is it an intangible thing? Is it?
You're right. That is tough.
It's tough. But because there's got to be so many players, guys who you played with along the way. You're like, oh, that's a sure thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's like, what?
Yeah. It's probably a million things, to be honest with you.
Well, when you think of yourself and why you made it.
Yeah, well, to me specifically, I obviously, even going back to like that summer when I turned pro and played well and kind of got my card, sure, I put a lot of work into my game and do everything I can to try to give myself the best opportunity to play well. But I think sometimes it's understated too, just how and I think it's with everyone, but, I was very fortunate, like I said, that when I turned pro, I happened to be playing well.
Mm-hmm.
And that really kind of got me off on the right foot and, was able to get my card. And who knows, I could have put in the same amount of work and maybe just something was a tick off and I don't get off to that nice start that summer and maybe I don't get my card and then maybe I go to the Corn Ferry. And, so I'm very aware of how I guess I try to understand that there is some luck involved in kind of the way some of these things work out, sure. I think. And, I try to take care of everything that I can. But to your point about guys that maybe don't make it, they could be doing maybe the same thing that we're all doing. And that just, whether it's they just happen to have a bad week at the wrong time, whether it's trying to get through Q school or, something like that. And I don't want to chalk it up just to luck, but, I think that is something that definitely plays a role.
But you have some unique characteristics that I think, and maybe they come from, you come from a Navy family, right? So did that discipline, from your dad, has that carried through to the way that you approach things? And you think that's had an impact on your golf?
Yeah, definitely. Growing up, it was, you just did things the right way, you know? I remember even my grandfather, who was also in the Navy, having a saying, it was the 6 Ps. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on this.
You're absolutely. We encourage cussing.
Prior planning prevents piss poor performance. So, I try to do, things the right way, whether it's golf or just in life. That's important to me. And I think more times than not, things will, work out the way you want them to if you prepare. And, I think the performance you want, will be there. So, I also think, I'm pretty stubborn also. And I think even with and again, it wasn't just me, I had so much help, but even going through the injury and stuff, I couldn't accept things just kind of working out that way, that I was just going to have this injury and, just not be able to fix it and almost being like out of my control. I was like, I'm going to keep trying to fix this until it's fixed kind of thing. And I feel similarly about my golf. If things aren't going well or if there's something not the way that I want, I think I have kind of that, I don't know if it's motivation or just stubbornness, that I'm just going to fix this and get better and do the things that I feel like I can and should do. Yeah.
No, I think, we talk a lot about a stoic acceptance of things as they are. And sometimes a little a stubbornness about, well, I do have the chance to change this. I do have a chance to do something different here. I think that's pretty healthy. And that's, and that goes back. All golfers are you got to be obsessed about your game, and what you want to do with it. So especially, to play at the level that you're playing. But at the same time, your dad would write in your hat, what was it? Stay humble, bud.
Yeah, be humble,
bud.
Yeah.
What is that? What's humility mean to you?
Like I said, I think just more so than anything, just trying to, do things the right way, and then just accept kind of the outcome. Mm-hmm. I think maybe another part of humility is, going back to like stubborn or working on, the things that mean something to me, is I try to be very kind of strict with myself and lenient with others, I guess.
Yeah.
I think I've even started to understand that more, like, having a family and, I can't treat everything the way I do when I'm out hitting balls and, and be that kind of serious or intense about everything. So I try to hold myself to a very high standard and and let, other things kind of slide off my back.
Yeah. I think it's a great way of looking at work and effort, right? That we're responsible. I try and fail, but the idea that, I'm responsible for the work. I'm responsible for showing up, and the results are ultimately going to be out of my control. That last part is hard to accept, of course, because you want to keep forcing your way into things. But I love that your dad writing that, because I think humility is such a valuable and important tool. And in our culture, especially in our sports culture, like you look around, you wouldn't say like there's humility everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But it's so valuable, because for me, humility means like a true understanding of yourself, right? Like people say humble and they think, oh, that means I have to I have to tell everyone I suck or something, or I'm less than, you know. But that's not really what, I don't think humility, I don't think that's what you're suggesting, what anyone's suggesting when it's to be humble. It's to sort of know who you are and be the best version of that is kind of how I think about it.
And I think too, just maybe not, I try not to take myself that seriously.
That's very important.
Yeah.
Right?
Like I think that's maybe what I think of the most when I think of humility, is that, even though it may mean, in this talking about golf, maybe even though it may mean a lot to me, in the world or in the grand scheme of things, it's not, I try not to take it too seriously, right? Like that doesn't affect my effort or the, how much I love it or what, the things that I try to do to be the best golfer that I can. But I also try not to just, like I said, take myself or what I'm doing too seriously in the grand scheme of things. And, going back to, becoming a dad and having a family, I think that is kind of along the same lines of humility and perspective, and not taking the golf too seriously, that, or being a golfer or, whatever label you want to give it. Like, it's just something that I, love to do and want to be the best at it that I can. But, I'm not a heart surgeon either. I'm not,
Right.
I'm not in the military risking my life for, our country and other people's freedom. So I think that's, that's maybe a better answer to what like humility is for me.
Yeah, that someone should write that in a hat as well. Don't take yourself so seriously.
I might need a bigger bill.
Right? Yeah. But that's like a solution to all life's problems. When you realize, like, hey, we're here for a short time. Don't take yourself so damn seriously.
Yeah.
But and think about what you do. I mean, you're playing golf for a living. You got your dream job, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting when people, at some point in your life, you'd say, okay, if I could just play golf for a living, that's all I want, right? Mm-hmm. Or someone says, if I could be a teacher or a professor, that's all I'd ever want. Or if I could be a lawyer or a doctor or whatever. And then you're that thing. Mm-hmm. And are you able to ever get perspective and reflect on that and be like, damn, this is pretty cool. That I'm doing this. Or is it a matter of like, okay, what's the next thing? And then and the next thing, I have my dream job. I'm a writer. I get to be around golf. If someone told me that, when I was 18, I would have said I'm the luckiest man in the world. Mm-hmm. But do I wake up every morning feeling like the luckiest man in the world? Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you able to because I look at your life, I'm like, man, play golf for a living. I'd do anything. Are you able to have a perspective on that?
I don't think I fully appreciated until I was out for those, a little over 3 years. And just how lucky I am. And it's exactly what you said, but I'm so lucky to wake up and do what I feel like doing every day. You know, I mean, that I don't, I've never seen a poll. I've never, seen any data on this, but I think, I don't know how common that is in life. I'm sure there are a lot of people that have to wake up and do things that, maybe they don't feel like doing that day, or that, their job's really, it feels like a job. And, when I went through that injury and was wondering if I was ever going to be able to play golf again, those were some hard questions I had to ask myself is, okay, if this doesn't work out, what am I going to do? And obviously there was nothing that really sounded that good. I love playing golf. It's what I want to do. And, I've always known that I was very fortunate to play golf for a living, but when it's taken away and you're really forced with that decision of, okay, if this doesn't work out, what am I going to do? I feel like that gave me a different perspective of not so much just lucky to play golf, but lucky to do what I love to do. And I think that's just a very, just a great way to go through life is to wake up and something that you're passionate about. And, I'm laying in bed at night looking at my golf swing, and, I'm just obsessed with the game and trying to get better. And I think even if I, the day that I stop competing, I think I'll always love going out and hitting balls and working on and just the little nuances of the game. And I was really, the flip side of that, I really had to contemplate and almost make some decisions about is trying to find another thing that I would have enjoyed doing. And, I don't think anything would have gave me the same fulfillment that playing golf does. But, but to your point about perspective, that was something I think about a lot now. And just how lucky I am to do what I love to do.
And your setback is really a gift or the time off, that you had to take, because now you can appreciate this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what else so if you had to do something else for fun, it wouldn't be as fulfilling. I read somewhere you wanted to scuba dive somewhere, or what else would make you happy?
I don't know. Another thing I learned is that I'm really only good at one thing.
Right,
So,
yeah.
that factors, I think, into, other career choices. And I've kind of put all my eggs in one basket with golf. So,
sure. Well, the basket is overflowing, but we're really, really happy for you and all the success you've had. And you're a great guy to watch on tour and easy to root for. So, we wish you all the success. Thanks so much for having us down to the Bears Club. What's on the schedule for the rest of your day?
Well, thanks for having me. This has been a pleasure. And, I don't know, maybe go back home, cook some lunch for the boys, and
no practice today?
We'll see. Maybe it looks a little rainy, but if the weather holds out, I'll sneak out there and hit a couple.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And if you enjoyed this episode, we strongly encourage you to become a member of the Golfer's Journal, or if you already are, to share it with your friends. As a reader-supported publication, we couldn't do it without you. We also couldn't do it without the help of our partners, and they are Titleist, Scotty Cameron, FootJoy, Holderness & Bourne, Omega, Charles Schwab, and BMW. We'll see you next time on the Golfer's Journal podcast.